Hello there, Shane here, and I think I am incredibly unlucky when it comes to running these webinars recently, because the past 3 times I've run a webinar, my Zoom has crashed just before lunch. So forgive me being a minute or so late, but thank you very much for joining me. The list of attendees is huge now, so thank you very much for your interest. So I'm just going to welcome some of the names that are popping up on the screen right now, but forgive me if I don't mention yours. But I can see Alan and Anthony, in fact 2 Anthonys, Ash, Chris, Danny. Danny Green's there twice. That's doubly eager, that I like to see. I'm not sure what's gone wrong there, but it doesn't matter as long as you're here. I've got a smiley from Danny. Thank you. Yeah, good afternoon, Jeff. How are you? In fact, I've not loaded my chat box up to see it. These are just little pop-ups. So yeah, feel free, by the way, any messages, any questions, anything like that you want to pop into the chat box. If you can't see the chat box, if you're new to the system, just wave the mouse over where you can see me right now. You should be presented with some icons. One of them is chat. Click on that. And my preference is always that you, just above where you can type in the chat box, just change the listing to all panelists and attendees. It's always good that other people can see what you're typing as well. So lots of hellos coming back to me, so thank you very much for that. I can see Jeff and Jason and Hetty, Roy, Pravin, Melissa, Cam. So yeah, thank you very much and welcome. The list is growing now. So much so that I can't keep up. So given that I came on a couple of minutes late, I'm going to jump straight in and start. So let me just fire up my screen share. Okay, let me just fire up my screen share if I can get it to actually happen. Here we go there, and click that. And I will load up my slides. So yeah, we don't need that one now, given that we've passed that time. So let me just jump in. Now, I know I've just said this, but my next slide is reminding me to say this. So let me just make sure that things are happening. So number one, it is being recorded. We've run this at a very different time than usual, 3:30. Clearly, that's going to conflict with a few people in terms of maybe school runs or whatever. But I'm recording it for that reason. We'll send it out to those people. And I know some of you said, look, I can only stay for a short period of it and then I'll have to go. So I won't be offended when I say a few drop-offs, given that you've given me a heads up on that. A few other things then, as a reminder, use the chat box by all means. I always keep an eye on the chat box, so any questions that come in, I should spot straight away. I usually spot the chat box over and above the Q&A box, so my preference is use the chat box, but I will glance at the other one anyway. The advantage of chat box is everyone can see it. If you select that drop down and change it from all panelists to all panelists and attendees, which I will do now myself. Okay, so I'm just going to load up the chat box as well, so I've got an eye on that, and then I will begin. So, okay, so I think I've said everything. It's being recorded. There we go. Right then, I'm just going to very quickly take you through the agenda. I know that some of you are regular attendees of my webinars, which I'm always grateful for. There are some brand new people as well, so I will be giving a brief introduction as to who I am. And I will also be talking about maybe some of the challenges that you may well be having now that ultimately this webinar is intended to help you overcome. And I think if you can see that I understand these challenges and where people are coming from, it always helps, doesn't it? There's a caveat, I think, to this webinar as well, which I'll be sharing with you. Then I shall get to the crux of the webinar, the presentation. What is it that the UK's best practices are doing, the accountancy practices, 1 to 3 partner firms? I want to emphasize these aren't the top 20 or the top 50 or even the top 100. These are everyday accountants who were struggling in terms of working too many hours, not earning enough fees, really busy all the time, firefighting, that have managed to turn their business around, and they're getting extraordinary results. And you can replicate exactly the same stuff that they've done. My JFDI reward, JFDI stands for Just Flipping Do It reward. And that's really part of the caveat to this. You know, you to see the results, you've obviously got to take the action. I've also got a bonus for you as well, which I will post out to you, and I shall share that right at the very end of this session. So the promise, the caveat really, the promise is you will discover what the habits are that these accountants in practice are consistently doing. My recommendation is that these aren't just an action that you'll just do and tick off and that's it, you're going to get the results. These are things to put in place as a consistent part of everyday practice. My recommendation is set goals, set milestones around making sure that these things happen. As I say, it's not just an item you can tick off. Life's just not that simple, is it? Really, I think the order that I taught these through is probably the most logical order. Now, obviously, every single practice is different, but I hope you'll cover payroll services. Anthony, I will not be covering payroll services. Right then. Okay, just one more thing, and again, I know the regular attendees will have seen me do this. This is live. I am sat here. I am experiencing technical challenges, or I was certainly. So it is live. It's not one of those evergreen things. So if I ask you to participate, if I ask you to put your name in or something like that, please do. I thrive on the interaction. It just lets me know that people are giving me their undivided attention. And I'm not just background noise. I don't like to be background noise. I think if I'm putting the effort to share lots of my knowledge and experience, then I'd be grateful that you can just commit to giving me that attention. So please just put in the chat box a yes to confirm that I have got your focus for at least the next 55 minutes. So thank you, Jason. Very quick and eager in there. Yes, thanks, Anthony. Lovely, thank you very much. Okay, that's lots and lots of yeses. Oh, Stephen, just spotted your name in there. I have offered that you and I have a chat, and I'd love to have a chat with you and catch up, Stephen. So that would be fantastic. Anyway, right, let me move on. Right then, so my personal purpose, I'm Shane Lucas, I'm Managing Director of AVN. I just want to share my personal purpose here because I think it's incredibly important and it really drives me to do the stuff that I do within this business and in my personal life as well. So my purpose is about enabling people's ability to make better lifestyle choices. And that really it fits into three key areas for me. I do lots of fundraising and various events that will help people, help charities. One particular charity called Head First, help people recover from serious brain injury. The brain's incredibly important, but it's also very fragile, isn't it? If we damage that in any way, we kind of lose the person that we were. So for personal reasons, that's something that's important to me. There are people out there in the wider world that don't have choices about their lifestyle that we take for granted. And so I do what I can to help people in those areas. And it doesn't have to be outside of the UK either. There are people close to home that also don't have those types of choices. And of course, people in business, accountants, no exception, who find themselves just working so incredibly hard, so many hours, and they feel they have no choice but to keep working those hours in order to pay the bills, put the food on the table, and to grow their business. And there is a better way, and I want to help people ultimately achieve those better ways. A little bit about AVN. As I said, I'm Managing Director of AVN. We are a coaching and training organisation for accountants. We run many different workshops and events for accountants to help them ultimately implement a lot of the stuff that we talk about. We have 12-week programs. We also have membership as well as an offer people. Ultimately, we take people through this proven 7-stage methodology, and I will be touching on that later on in this webinar. But that's proven to really help people to get to where they want to be to achieve their dreams in their accountancy practice. Over the last 21 years, now this is a very ballpark figure, as you can see, otherwise it wouldn't be so exact, but we've helped almost 3,000 accountants during that period of time. And through those accountants as well, we've collectively made lots of impacts throughout the world in terms of global goal impacts. I certainly am a huge advocate of a business is here to do good, and I think the profits that a business make, a contribution of those profits, a percentage of those profits, can be used to do good elsewhere in the world. So this is kind of our internal pledge here. So it's our when good, then good pledge. We believe that if something good happens to us, then something good can happen elsewhere in the world, and we make a difference. So for example, just by attending this webinar, you've not paid anything to do that. We've not received any income. It's not just about the profits, actually. When good happens to us, and I'm building a relationship up with you in this sense, by you attending this webinar, there is a giving that will take place that impacts on one of those global goals. Now, forgive me, I can't remember which one it is now, but at the end of it, you will get a certificate that says exactly what that was. Today, this is just a video of me pointing to the relevant page on our website earlier on, just so that I don't have to stop my slides and do it now live. But so far, we've kind of made impacts in different areas on those global goals. If you're not familiar with the United Global Goals, you can go to our website and just click on one of those. It'll tell you a little bit more about it. It comes under the Our Giving section. Right then, okay, I mentioned my purpose earlier, and I've written a number of books over the past few years, and co-authored some of them as well, that really fit with that purpose. They're making a difference. So from business owners that aren't accountants and business owners that are accountants, all of these books in different ways will help them. And my latest book, which I I was hoping to have been able to brandish a physical copy of, but the prints aren't here yet, is now finished, and I'm about to be giving that out, putting that onto Amazon and giving it to our members, etc. And later today, I should be sharing with you how you can get a copy of that posted out for free, as long as you're based in the UK. So that's just one little quote there from Michael Hem as well. And really, it talks about AVN excellence, putting excellence into practice, and exactly how you can do that. Okay, our mission, and I think this is the final thing that I'm going to move on. Our mission is to help accountants in practice get better choice about the role they play, the hours they work, the income they take, and the difference that they make. Right then, okay. Now, the problem, and again, I've used this slide a few times. I think it really well sets the scene, if you like, for many people that are in a practice. Whether you've taken over a practice, whether you've set it up from scratch, it makes no difference. We often think, right, okay, in my life, I have a certain amount of capacity, and I'm talking life in general. And for that, I'd like to maybe dedicate a certain amount of that to running my accountancy practice. I'd like to see my family. I'd like to spend time with my friends. And of course, I would like to do exercise and my hobbies and those types of things that are going to keep me healthy in my life as well, and keep my stress levels down, etc. But the sad reality is that over time, the accountancy practice, running that business, keeping it going, trying to please everybody, starts to dominate our time, which means we end up working more hours than we should do, not necessarily generating the income that we should do either. And all of this just means it comes at the expense of family, friends, and health. It can often feel like this, can't it, that we're drowning. In fact, at our last conference in 2018, we interviewed Brian Thompson, who went on to win it was voted the most inspiring accountant award. But this was his interview, and I've just taken 10, 15 seconds of this. It kind of shares where he was at one point as well. And I thought this image really went with it quite nicely. So let me just show this to you.
Meant to you and the firm? What have been the overall benefits?
I guess what I was like, I don't know whether you know that children's game that you used to play at parties where you have to stand up and do a demonstration. You got the stick, and you go like that, and you go round and round and round, you get dizzy, and then you've got to get to a point in the distance. That's what I was like, because I was going all around like this. My head was all over the place, I was dizzy, and that's where we were. But I seem to have got my head right now, and I'm enjoying the journey, the AVN journey, with the use of the...
I don't need to play anymore. I just wanted to play that little bit of a snippet. Now, I'd just like to share, the reason I'm sharing this is because quite often people say to me, look, you know, those accountants that you've got these great case studies for, they're probably much more entrepreneurial than me. They're probably in a better starting point than me. The reality is that they absolutely weren't. And Brian shared that, and there are countless examples. People tend to, most people, you know, accountants, they train to be accountants, but they're not really taught how to run an incredibly effective business. And this is in general, you know, we have to try and pick these things up as by osmosis in you know, in many ways. And as a consequence of that, we make mistakes along the way, and those mistakes, we're not aware of them at the time, but they show themselves in terms of these consequences. Our time's eaten up. You know, we're having lots of clients, lots of meetings with clients. They're demanding your time. They're phoning you up on a regular basis. They're emailing you and wanting you to drop everything to respond to it, which actually has a knock-on effect then on your productivity. It leaves you working lots of hours, doesn't it? Your income can suffer. You know, there are lots of cheap accountants sprouting up there. Business clients and potential clients are negotiating fees down. You're getting into disputes with these people as well. They thought something was included that you did for them extra and it wasn't, so you're missing out. And really, this can affect your profitability, of course. And it tends to leave people, as a consequence of all of that, really not happy. You know, you're focused on just doing a lot of the grunt work, unable to maybe take a step back, work on the business, and just make things better. And you can kind of lose that sense of fulfillment. Just a quick yes or no in the chat box. Does this resonate? Just give me a yes or a no if some of the stuff I've just mentioned resonates. Okay, so lots of yeses coming in already. Just a quick reminder, if you can change it to all panelists and attendees, that would be better, just so other people can think, yeah, actually, I'm not the only one, because most of you still left it as all panelists. If you don't feel comfortable sharing, don't worry about it, but it's usually my preference. It can make us realise that actually we're not alone. Okay, so what I would like to ask you to do then is just give me a flavour on, yes, you've said that you can relate to those things. Just do me a scale of 1 to 10, and preferably on those three. So how do you feel about how much time you're spending in your business? If you're working 40, 50, 60, 70 hours and you want to be working a lot less than that, then obviously grade that one lower. So you get the gist on that. How happy on a scale of 1 to 10 are you with those things, if you like? So 1 is appalling and 10 is absolutely elated. Just give us a quick flavour on which is the worst for you, and it might be all of them. Thanks, Stephen. Thanks, Jeff. Okay, yeah, understood. Okay, so just keep those coming in. The way that Jeff structured it was how I was looking for, but if one of them is far worse than the others, then yeah, just do that one by all means. So, okay. Yeah, brilliant. All right, understood. Thank you. Okay, so clearly, you know, most of you want to presumably increase those things. You're middling to low in some cases, maybe a little bit higher on some, but clearly I'm not seeing a 10. Now, fair enough, we can always want to have more enjoyment, we can always want to have more time, etc. So 10 was kind of a little bit leading, but if you've, you know, I can see, Pravin, that you've put, you are enjoying what you're doing, but clearly you'd like to improve certain other areas. So I accept that. Thank you for that. All right. Now, this is going to come across maybe a little bit of a statement of the blatantly obvious, but I'm going to say it anyway. The most important part of this webinar is it's not just about taking notes, it's about taking the action. Yeah, sitting on here, taking the notes down, thinking, yeah, that's a great idea is one thing, but ultimately we've got to carry out those actions. Right then, the stuff I'm going to be sharing with you is it's the common threads really that came through from the awards from our 2018 conference. Now we've got our 2019 conference literally in 1 week today. And I've already been reading, in fact I was going to share some of this stuff with you later, but I've already been reading, well obviously I read these quite a while back, but this folder, 43,000 words worth of entries from people who have also made very similar successes in their accountancy practice, massively turned it around, and that's their entries in there. 43,000 words is a heck of a read, but guess what? It was an incredibly inspiring read. It was a pleasure to read through those, as it was the 2018 one. So as I say, what I've done here is I've picked out the common threads that I'm going to be sharing with you that these people have done in common. So if it's just isolated and one person's done it, with one exception, which I will share with you, I haven't included it. Okay, so the first one is Business Clarity Award. This is really about having crystal clarity about what you want to achieve in your practice, because if you don't have that, then just like Brian in that video was saying, you know, I was kind of spinning around and heading off in all of these different directions. You need to have clarity, and this is what they have. But some of the common threads they have as well is that they'd all connected with somebody external, whether it was an external coach, whether they tapped into external training, tapped into other accountants to bounce ideas off, because you can feel very isolated when it's just you in your accountancy practice, can't you? They all had, this is that clarity again, they were all clear about what they wanted. What was their purpose? What really got them out of bed in the morning? And for most of them, I've got to say, it wasn't about producing good quality compliance accounts. It was about what you can do with that information to make much more of a difference to the clients. That was really where the common thread of their purpose came from, and I should be sharing some of those. They have crystal clear personal goals, and if they're part of multi-partner firms, they've openly shared those so that everyone can help each other strive towards achieving their personal goals. Personal goals might mean hours a week, personal income, owning a yacht, or whatever it might be that's important to them, sharing those things, and when they might want to retire as well or step out or whatever. The business vision, what they want to achieve, and again, multi-partner firms, they get together, they collaborate on something that they're in agreement with, and then they set business goals around those, broken down into targets. So maybe a 10-year objective, maybe some 3-year goals, breaking those down into 1-year goals, then breaking it down even further into quarterly goals, so the momentum is always moving towards what they want to achieve. They remove the restraints. We can all have restraints, and if we don't do something about them, they can hold us back. So these are some of the examples that people said in their things. Again, this isn't me, this is what I picked up in those things. So self-limiting beliefs is a massive restraint. It allows you to hold them back. Tapping into other people helps with that. The social proof factor, seeing what other people have done. Yes, I can do this, I can remove that restraint. In fact, there were 2 people in a franchise actually that they ended up, I'm not going to name the franchise, but it was the same one, but this particular franchise was being very restrictive about what they could and couldn't do in their practice, and they weren't able to achieve some of the stuff that they were inspired to do by certainly the likes of Steve and myself and my team. So they ended up getting out of that franchise because of a massive restraint. Now, I'm not against franchises if that helps people, but ultimately it wasn't helping this person. Separated from business partners, I talked about having a vision that's aligned and goals that are aligned if you've got multiple partners in a practice. If they're not, then actually it's not going to be enjoyable, and you're not going to achieve your personal aspirations if you're trying to build a business with somebody else who has a very different idea about it. So these people have separated. They've parted company with clients that are just giving them a hard time. They're maybe not profitable, or even if they are profitable, but they're giving them a hard time, life's too short. They've parted company with them. They've parted company with team members as well that have been holding them back. Maybe they've just been negative about everything, or maybe they bring the morale down in the team. There might be various reasons, but we can all be guilty of trying to bring people on, can't we? When reality that is another ball and chain. So there has to be a balance, of course. And in one particular situation as well, somebody had said, you know, my life partner had just been holding me back, negative, bringing me down all the time, making me feel I wasn't good enough. And again, life's too short, isn't it? So for completeness, I felt I should put that on, not least because I've got 6 ball and chains. I joke. Okay, so The next thing that they all did in common was that they, not just once as a one-off, but on a regular basis, refined their client base, because we can all reach a certain capacity, especially if we're on our own or maybe with a small team. We can reach a capacity where actually we just can't take on any more. But sometimes if we get rid of the lower end of the spectrum in terms of the client base, then we can make room for higher, and we can keep going through this process so the quality of the client base gets better. If you were to analyze your client base, not by income, but by profitability, you would probably, most likely, based on my experience, discover that 80% of your income is coming from just 20% of your client base. So if you continue to refine this and ditch some of the lower 10 or 20%, then you're making room. You're saving time for a start, but you're also making room then for some of the better quality clients that you can take in. Okay, they've taken control by letting go. Okay, so they've put systems in place so that they can take holidays without fear of losing control, but by delegating the tasks that they want doing in such a way that people will do them to the incredibly high standard that they want doing. So we have to let go to a degree, but that doesn't mean we lose control. It just means we've put systems in place so that people can do everything to your high standard. They have a clear strategy in place. Now, all of those award winners are using a strategy that we've helped them put in place. So that's why those two branded things are there. But if you've got a crystal clear vision strategy, you can reverse engineer that back into a set of steps. It's going to say, right, okay, in order to achieve that, I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to do this. And then they follow that, they track their progress, they measure the numbers that matter to them on a one-page plan, and continually they have meetings to make sure that they're on track. And if not, what do they do about it? Really importantly, they allocate time. They set themselves, whether it's a 1 hour a week, whether it's 2, 3, a day a week, whatever it might be, but they will consistently allocate time, which no client, no phone calls allowed to come in and disrupt that. That is time to work on their number one business, the number one business client, which is, of course, their own accountancy practice. Okay, now, I mentioned earlier this feeling that, well, actually those people, maybe they're a bit more driven, etc. Yes, some of the people are much more driven than many other people. You know, they probably are big action takers. They'll make leaps and bounds progress. They probably have this kind of description and pace. But that's not the norm. They are probably in the minority. Most people take pigeon steps. And for me, it doesn't matter. As long as you're making progress in the right direction towards your vision, that's all that's important. It's when people aren't making any progress, they're just in that day-to-day grind, on the hamster wheel, if you like, and not really improving on anything. That's not good, of course. This is where we're just doing the same thing every single day. So these are the habits that those people consistently do that fall under this first category of getting much more clarity about what they want to do. They've allocated the time, they've committed the time, they're working to a specific plan, working on their business to make it better. Now, what we tend to see when we work with people is within, on average, now this is an average, within 3 months, on average, people are generating greater fees. So the average is around 40%, but in most of those cases, that 40% on their GRF, their gross recurring fee income, has gone straight to the bottom line, because we've helped them actually provide a better, implement a better pricing strategy. Their cash flow stabilized, their work in progress is massively reduced. In most cases, it's negative work in progress. We've helped them spot opportunities as well to cross-serve their clients and ultimately cross-sell more services that's helping the client and bringing in a greater level of income as well. So in terms of income, that's a massive boost. In terms of time, we often get told, and I was going to show these at the end, but these are the forms that we collect in from people when we've worked with them for a while now. I've got countless amounts of forms. These separate piles are just lots of different people telling us about the results that they've got. Now, I assume you can see me. I can't see my own camera, but I'd like to think you can see me and see that I'm showing all of these different forms where people have said different things about the amount of hours that it's brought down, the income that they've increased, the enjoyment factor. We ask about all of those three things. So these are, as I say, just averages that I'm showing you on screen. And from an enjoyment point of view, that's less easy to give a tangible measure for, but ultimately they're getting less hassle and they're getting more time and more reward. Okay, so now I'd just like to ask you to fess up in the chat box who's thinking this. Because it's easy, isn't it, to think, actually, well, you know, my practice, me, Jason. Okay, well, thank you for being honest. Who else? Surely somebody else will be. Yeah, Hetty is. So already I've dazzled you with a few results and you're thinking, well, actually, this won't apply to my practice. So, well, thankfully, there's only 2 names on there. I don't object to any more appearing on there because, let's face it, we can all think that. We can all see the success of other people and think, well, actually, you know, my client base is different. The location I'm at is very different. All of those different things. But the reality is, okay, well, thank you for being honest. Yeah, and thank you to you, Stephen, as well, for being honest as well. Yeah, so appreciate that your practice is different. Okay, well, probably maybe you and I need to have a conversation to find out why that is. Oddly enough, actually, most accountants say on their website we're different, and yet they go on to demonstrate that they're not. Anyway, look, from our point of view, as I say, we've worked with lots and lots and lots of accountants, almost 3,000 over the past 20 years. And I can tell you that actually the only difference really is our thinking up here. That is the only difference. Okay, well, thank you for that, Anthony. Brilliant. Okay, I was just going to show you, these are some of the types of things that we get from people as well. So last few months, 25k of fees. Lots of different things through there, and in one from Brian Thompson. And again, this is 3 months. These are statements that we get just from 3 months in. So it's different for everybody, really, of course. But most people are generating much more income. They're happier, and they're reducing the amount of hours. I just want you to do the maths. I don't need you to share this with me, but just do the maths yourself. If you were to increase your gross recurring income by 40% in 3 months and it went straight to the bottom line, what would that income look like for you? Now, forgive me for putting the equation on the screen and even doing the calculation for you. I know that I'm talking to accountants here. I've just done that by way of just a visual demonstration as to some of the possible results. So I'm not trying to teach you how to suck eggs by any stretch, but if you're ultimately generating 100k in income, and 40% of that went straight to the bottom, sorry, 40% increase went straight to the bottom line, then you can see straight away what the potential benefit is. And let's face it, even if it was less than that, I've obviously missed the pound sign off the first figures there, even if it was less than that, then yeah, Jeff, as you say, you could even get a holiday. So we can see that actually that is quite a financial income, even if it was half the average results that everybody else is getting. So that's just on clarity as well. So the next award that I'm going to be talking about is differentiation. Just type in the box, what is that logo for? Just type that one into the box. I know you'll have all come across that one without a doubt. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Stephen. It is Disney. Yep. So it's Disney, isn't it? And Disney, when we think about Disney, we don't just see that logo and think the word Disney. It actually has an emotional connotation as well. It has an emotional impact on us because our experience of Disney, although it will be very different from everybody's, chances are it's very good, it's very positive. We know that if we've got young kids, we will happily sit down a kid and say, watch this Disney film. You don't feel that you have to have watched it first. You will trust that it will be child-proof and it will be an amazing experience for them. If you take them to a Disneyland park, exactly the same, you know the experience is going to be phenomenal. We hear stories all the time of some great things that Disney do. And every single one of those experiences just builds in our emotional sort of bank, if you like, around Disney. And that is an amazing experience. So that brand represents more than just a pictorial logo. It's the vision, it's the values, it's the reputation, the purpose, the beliefs. All of those different things really culminate into what a brand is. So I think a mistake a lot of people make is that they'll seek somebody out and they'll say, oh, help me grow the brand, help me develop a good brand. The brand for me is a consequence of doing really great things consistently. That's what comes from a brand. I don't think you can pay someone to help you grow a brand. That's my opinion on that one. Okay. Now, I mentioned earlier, didn't I, what a lot of accountants say. When we're different, we're not like other accountants, we're proactive, we're forward-thinking accountants, those types of words. Now, I did correct that typo that is on payroll, and for some reason it's reverted back. So forgive the typo, I'm sure I corrected that once. But these are the common types of words, the ones I've circled, that people have on their websites. And consequence of that is that a business owner looking at 3 or 4 different accountants' websites, they're seeing these common words pop up. They'll then go and say, we do accounts, we do bookkeeping, we do payroll, those types of words, so that they're not differentiating. When you don't differentiate yourself from the competition in terms of how you come across, then the only deciding factor for your potential clients is the price tag, isn't it? So if they're doing this and they're doing this and they're doing this and you're doing the same thing and they're cheaper, why should I go with you? That's ultimately the decision, isn't it? So you need to differentiate yourself from the others, and that's what these do. Now, I always talk about Aristotle here. 2,500 years ago, he came up with that. There are lots of books that have been written recently that say the same thing. When we communicate, it should be on these 3 levels. It should be on ethos. So ethos is ultimately about establishing credibility. And I think accountants are good at this. You know, you've got your qualification, so you've got that level of credibility, reputation, trustworthiness. Accountants are generally ethical and have integrity, those types of things. So they come through. Testimonials support the credibility. Logic. So again, this is a great strength of accountants, the facts and figures, but not always maybe on the outcomes. So what are the outcomes that you can expect from working with us? So that's often a missing factor. But one of the most important elements, which again is often missed on accountants' websites, is pathos, which is the emotion side of it. Now, the emotion really is the vision, it's the values, it's the dream, it's the purpose, it's those types of things. The stories, not so much the testimonial that says, I worked with Joe Bloggs for 10 years and I think they are great. The case study is the story about, well, these were the problems I were having, this is what Joe Bloggs, the accountant, did, and these were the results we got. This is how it's impacted my personal life. It's much more of a story than that, and ultimately, you know, it gets people choking up because they're very emotional. That's often lacking on accountants' websites, but that's the key factor in terms of differentiating you. So let me just show you a couple of examples of accountants' website homepages. Now, I'm not going to go into detail, so I'm not going to put the stories and all those other things, but on this, yes, it says Chartered Accountants and Business Advisors at the top left there, but it's very different straight off the cuff, isn't it? It doesn't say we do accounts, we do bookkeeping, we do payroll. It's about what they want to get out of their business. This should look very familiar to one of our guests, but this is about making lives better, isn't it? You know, this is not... Yes, that's yours, Stephen. This is about showing straight away that you are very different from the competition. This is Stephen's motto here. This is about making lives better. This is Michael Hem. Straight there, it's about what do you want to achieve? Lawrence & Co. This tree is formed by the most common words used by the people giving them a testimonial. This was Brian Thompson. This is about building your business, increasing your growth. So again, we're not just talking about payroll, bookkeeping, etc. Another thing that they have in common is that they set themselves apart by producing their own book and professional brochures and other collateral, really, that just makes them come across more professional. Having your own book really positions you as an expert. Featuring in a book as well positions you as an expert. So those books, we help people create those books, so it's a massive shortcut. They become an author of a book, and by definition, being an author, they are an authority. They are seen and recognized as an expert in business. So this is a massive differentiator as well. They all have their values on their website and different ways of just establishing their credibility. So we saw there, we've got Val. Now, if you were to visit that website, beyond the numbers CA, then click on the About Us, you'll be able to listen to Val. She's positioned a phone, I think, an iPhone on a stand and just talked through what her values were. MDH, his values, again, they're some of the first things you'll see. He's also got the credibility factor as well. Having external awards and accreditations also gives additional clout. An external body, if you like, has recognised some of the great things that you're doing. Featuring in a book, so I mentioned that. This is Fiona's website. She features in a book called The UK's Best Accountancy Practices. Again, Lawrence & Co., what they've done here is that they've just put a little widget type thing that automatically scans all of their case studies and testimonials, and it just picks up the most common words, and they are the biggest words on that tree at the beginning. But whatever resonates with a viewer, they're going to perhaps click on that and see the things that contain that. These are some of the mission statements, the purpose statements, etc., that those accountants have got on their websites as well. Social proof is incredibly important. We want to know, I mentioned those accreditations earlier, but we want to know that other people that are like us also think that this accountant is great. So what they do is this is an example. I did a quick Google, just plumbers near me. And one of the things that stands out for me is that the third one down has got the 5 stars, only submitted by 3 people, but it's got 5 stars. That got my attention over and above the others that didn't have any reviews. Now, what the people who won the awards and certainly entered for the awards had got in common is that they were consistently asking their existing clients, just please go on to say Google, and give us a review, give us a testimonial, give us a case study, those types of things. And don't just ask once because they'll never do it. It's something that you have to keep almost pestering for. But by doing that, then you're going to get these things. Same with Jackie. She asked her clients to go onto Yell.com and just said, would you please give us a rating on Yell.com? Be honest, but actually, arguably you can be selective as well in terms of who you ask, but she's got, in that particular screenshot, 12 ratings, and she'd only recently started doing it when I took the screenshot. I gather it's much more than that now. That makes her stand out as being better in that sense than everybody else that doesn't have that level. Same with Val as well. She was doing the exact same thing with Google. Asking for recommendations on LinkedIn is also a great strategy as well, because people will look you up on LinkedIn more and more these days. They become very exclusive and specialized in terms of who they will work with. They define their ideal client. They might have a little bit of leeway, but anyone who falls outside of that, they will refer on to another accountant. They will be giving their local competitors extra work, but actually by doing that, they're just keeping their time and their focus on the people that they love to work with. And there's nothing wrong with doing that. They maintain a level of professionalism. So they have, they'll only work with people who are in line with their values. They basically set out, this is how it's going to work if you're going to work with me. Tax return information does not come in on the 30th of January, for example. And they'll set out exactly how they must work. Otherwise, you can go to another accountant. So they'll agree on what's expected throughout the year. And when I say agree, they'll both discuss, this is what I would like, this is what I would like, this is what's not included, etc., so that it's absolutely crystal clear. They will give their clients penalties if they bring in information late. And they have a rule as well that, I might use my mobile phone, but you do not call me outside of normal hours unless it's a genuine emergency. They know their clients as well. They really understand them so that they can be more positioned as an expert. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be a sector. It could be a situation. Maybe it's a turnover range, but not 500,000 to 100 million, much more refined than that, but ultimately they understand what are the mistakes that they're probably facing right now at that stage in their business. What are the problems that they face, should I say, what are the mistakes that they make? And then they understand what are their goals and aspirations, what's the business potential, so that they can help them achieve that, and what's their current situation. By defining their ideal client that I mentioned to earlier as well, they can work through the rest of their clients and start to upgrade them. Or if they can't upgrade them, then ultimately they out them, so they've got even more quality time to spend with their other clients. And as I said earlier, as well as the 80-20 principle, they're always refining their ideal client profile just to take the standard up a little bit further every time. So they're the common threads that come with the differentiation. Okay, so as a consequence, as an outcome of this, they're earning better fees, they're getting even more time back, and they're generating much better appreciation, having much more passion for what they do, and enthusiasm as well. So that brings on more of a smile. Now, the final one I'm going to talk about in this session, because there are 7 altogether, the final one, I just want to talk about this business advisory award. And for me, this is more about just delivering added value. This is the lower end of the spectrum in terms of business advisory. Yes, it's helping to increase the numbers, the profitability, the revenue, those types of things, the sales, should I say. But I think business advisory has a bit of a spectrum. So this is just one end of that spectrum. Rather than trying to sell the different pieces, and I mentioned those websites where they say we do payroll, we do bookkeeping. Don't sell the pieces, sell the solution. Put a solution together, package up your different products into a packaged solution and sell that. You're effectively selling the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. That's what people want. Ultimately, they don't care about their payroll, they care about what does that mean for them. Payroll might not have been the best example there, but ultimately it's about how can you help them achieve their dreams and aspirations. Okay, so they consistently offer value-based pricing, not just fixed pricing, certainly not time-based pricing. They offer them 3 choices because everybody is different. They do go through top-down, they do use pricing software. The customer's in control when they can pick the level of service that they want. And they reverse the risk as well by offering guarantees. And they don't prejudge as well. They took every single potential client and existing client through all of these and let the client decide whether they want to make that investment. They absolutely don't compete on price. And just write this down as well, because so many people are just reducing their prices more and more. Cheap is never great, and great is never cheap. So they deliver high value in a low effort way as well. In other words, they tap into, I'm not suggesting they're often led by all these bright, shiny objects that are around, but there are software packages available that enable you to deliver much more value. You're still using Time's Up, that's fantastic. And yeah, that's great. So Time's Up is our pricing tool. There are others out there. Obviously, we believe ours is the best, but then I would say that I'm biased. But yeah, it's fantastic, Stephen, that you're using that. But I think a pricing piece of software really helps because it's not you conjuring up figures outside of your head. It's that computer says it's this. It's like when we look at a menu in a restaurant, we accept the prices on there. We don't barter with them. Okay, so thank you for that, Stephen. Appreciate that. They enhance the value perception as well. So they map out the entire customer journey. So, for example, just in you know, when you might first meet up with a client, going through how can we make all of these areas better? So a needs analysis, for example, what can we do to make that even better? So explore what are their personal goals, their business goals. This is all in an initial meeting. What are the challenges? Offer a solution, give them a fixed price agreement, emphasis on agreement as well, so everything's set out in black and white, what they will and won't get, a welcome pack onboarding procedure. When they visit, give them the map, the directions, reserve a car parking space for them if you're able to, because that'll make them feel special. All of these things are intended to make the potential client or client feel really special all of the time, which actually increases the value perception. have a meeting agenda and make sure that one of the items on there, in addition to some of these things, looking at the strengths and weaknesses, spotting opportunities for them, is asking for a referral. Who else can we help? I'm not going to go into referrals right now, of course, but going through strengths and weaknesses analysis, we have our one-page plan software for that. Looking at trend analysis to see if they're going in the right direction. And appreciating that they can't be all things to all people. So spot opportunities where you can maybe help them more as well. Do what-if analysis with them to look at how the numbers can be better. And one of the benefits that ABM members have is that they can go through this methodology with their clients that enables them to charge greater fees. No problem, Hetty. Thank you for letting me know. And of course, I will send that recording on to you. Okay, now I just want to very quickly share with you a little thing that Jackie Hooper did of JDH. Now, she's done the 19 one, of course, since then, but this was still from last year. What she came up with was a calendar that is pretty much unique to every single one of her clients, in that it's got specific reminders. Now, that might sound a bit daunting if different things on there are specific to clients, but ultimately it's more specific to each month end when the end of year is, and it's not that big a deal these days with the likes of Vistaprint and stuff like that. We can do these things. So she had a quote of the month, just for a bit of humour, a specific reminder for the clients, and then a little did you know as well, which actually benefited her in some ways, because people phoned up saying, I didn't know that, but it'd be great if you could do this for me. So that's just a little extra that Jackie did as well. When I talked about the unique one, that was it. And then finally on this subject, I think it's just worth noting that while the client yesterday will be today's expected norm. So it's, again, it's refining is a common word I've used here, and it's always refining that process and making things better all of the time. But when you're spending time working on the business, that's easier to do than when you're just working on the hamster wheel, isn't it? Okay, so they're the kind of things that come into the value, really. This is where we talk about business advisory, delivering exciting solutions at premium fees for clients. Now, what we see when we've worked with people, and certainly the people who were on stage talking about the benefits of what they've gone through in terms of implementing this stuff, is that this scenario here actually returns to some kind of sanity, to some normality, that they have got more time to spend with their family, friends, and on their health. So they've got the time, they're generating much more income, and they're in a much happier place. Now, this can beg the question, what if they, you know, they've reached a more sensible capacity now, but what if they do want to really grow much more? Is that going to start to have this effect again? So in other words, what if they want to grow? Well, that's another webinar, but that's the other 4 stages of the roadmap. So in a moment, I'll just tell you what those stages consist of. I'd just like to end this part of the webinar just by letting you listen to just some of the results that Brian shared on stage. And again, I think certainly 3 months, but this was 4 months in, I think, when he was at this conference.
If we're comparing year on year, the first 3 months of joining, our fees went up by 55%, 52% and 85% year on year comparison, which was great for obviously cash flow, for morale, which is really important obviously, and the workflow of jobs is improved as well.
So I'm not going to play too much of that, but hopefully you can see that actually, you know, these people are real, and we've got lots of these case studies on the website from very different personalities as well. So I think personality is important. As I mentioned earlier, some people will just thunder through this stuff, but other people, it's not so easy. But ultimately, making those steps is important, isn't it? Even if they're pigeon steps. I use this quote over and over again. I actually hope he did say this, since I've used it countless times. I was told recently another quote I was using, I'd attributed to the wrong person, but I'm pretty sure Einstein is responsible for saying doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, is ultimately the definition of insanity, isn't it? So the blinding flash of the obvious is that ultimately the results that you're getting now, many of you said that you weren't happy with the amount of time you're putting in, the income that you're taking, and the level of enjoyment. The results you're getting now are the results of the decisions and actions that you made yesterday. So I hope that you will agree that to start to get better results, something needs to change. Okay, so just give me a yes or no. Do you agree that you must improve the way that you run your practice to see better results? Give me a yes or no in the chat box, please. Okay, so not a single no, so thank you for that. Brilliant, okay. So I mentioned this earlier, didn't I? This, you know, I wouldn't see those results because my practice is different. And there's another one here which I've kind of alluded to as well. You know, those people are much more entrepreneurial than I am. Let me just share something with you that I must admit, I didn't realize this until I was just reading through this folder. I'm just going to stop my screen share just for a moment. I appreciate we're coming towards the end of my allocated time, but I just want to see if I can stop my bloody screen share. There we go. Hopefully you can just see me now. So I just want to show this. Now, as I said, this is 43,000 words of absolutely amazing entries for the Firm of the Year award this time around. And there are countless. I think 41. No, 41 was the, no, it was 41 people actually. It's quoted 43,000 words. 41 people had submitted an award. And almost without exception, they all said that the catalyst was the masterclass. The masterclass had kind of ignited, now these are my words, not theirs, but I'm summarizing really. It's like the masterclass awakened an entrepreneur from within, if that makes sense. Most accountants, certainly most of these accountants, would never have described themselves as having entrepreneurial tendencies, but actually the reality is that most of these have certainly become very entrepreneurial.